The GPS told me to turn onto a road that wasn't on any map, and when I did, I passed the same house 3 times, and the figure in the yard was watching me every single time. I was 24 when this happened. At the time, I was working a warehouse job in Phoenix, Arizona. Night shifts, long hours, and not enough sleep. In late October, around the week before Halloween, I decided to drive to Colorado Springs to visit my older sister. She'd just had her first baby, and I'd been putting the trip off for months. Flights were expensive, and I liked driving anyway. I liked being alone with my thoughts, music low, highway stretching endlessly ahead. I left Phoenix around 6 p.m. on a Thursday. The plan was to drive most of the night, stop somewhere in northern New Mexico, to sleep, then finish the trip the next day. I remember it being unusually cold for Arizona, even before the sun went down. By the time I crossed into New Mexico, the temperature gauge on my dash read 39 degrees Fahrenheit, and it kept dropping. Around midnight, I stopped at a gas station just outside Gallup. It was one of those lonely highway stops. One pump working, flickering fluorescent lights, a small convenience store with dusty windows. Inside, an older man behind the counter barely looked up when I paid. No music played, no radio chatter, just the hum of the refrigerator units. I remember feeling like I was interrupting something just by being there. Back on the road by 12:30 a.m. I headed northeast, following my GPS. The highway thinned out quickly. Traffic disappeared. The road narrowed from multiple lanes into a 2-lane stretch cutting through open desert and low hills. No streetlights, no houses, just reflectors on the road and my headlights carving tunnels through the dark. At first, everything felt normal, boring even. I had a podcast playing softly and a cup of gas station coffee that tasted like burnt dirt. Around 1:40 a.m., I noticed my GPS signal flicker. The blue arrow froze for a second, then jumped forward. I shrugged it off. That happens in rural areas, I told myself. About 10 minutes later, the GPS spoke. Turn right in 1 mile. Turn right in 1 mile. I frowned. I didn't remember seeing a turn on the map earlier, but I assumed it was a back road shortcut. I zoomed out. The screen lagged, then refreshed, showing a thin gray road branching off the highway. No name. Just a line cutting into darkness. I hesitated. The highway felt safer, but the GPS recalculated and added nearly an hour if I stayed straight. At around 2:05 a.m., I turned right. The road immediately felt wrong. It wasn't paved properly. Patchy asphalt, loose gravel crunching under my tires. Trees appeared out of nowhere, tall and thin, leaning toward the road like they were listening. My headlights barely reached beyond them. There were no reflectors, no signs, no painted lines. The silence was thick. Even with my windows up, I felt it pressing in like sound itself had been swallowed. I turned the radio back on, but all I got was static. Not even faint music, just harsh white noise. I remember checking the time again. 2:17 a.m. That's when I saw the first house. It sat back from the road, barely visible between the trees. No lights on, no driveway, just a shape too rectangular to be natural. As I passed, my headlights briefly illuminated something hanging from the porch. Wind chimes, maybe. They didn't move. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. A few minutes later, another house. This one closer to the road. The windows were dark, but I could swear something shifted behind the glass as I drove by. I told myself it was just shadows, just my tired eyes playing tricks on me. Then the road curved and led me past the same house again. Then the road curved and led me past the same house again. I noticed it because of a mailbox leaning at a sharp angle. Numbers barely visible, 195. I slowed down. That's not possible, I muttered out loud. I checked my GPS. The screen was blank now. No map, just my speed and the time. 2:26 a.m. I kept driving, heart beating faster, palms slick against the steering wheel. The road stretched on straight as a ruler, then curved again. And there was the mailbox. This time the house lights were on. Every light, windows glowing harsh white, porch light buzzing loudly enough that I could hear it as I passed. I didn't look directly at the windows. I don't know why. Some instinct told me not to. I sped up. My breathing became shallow, chest tight. The trees seemed closer now, branches arching overhead like ribs. The road felt narrower, even though I knew it wasn't. At around 2:34 a.m., my headlights caught something ahead. A person. They stood in the middle of the road, facing away from me. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded slightly, gravel spraying. I stopped maybe 20 feet away. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. The figure didn't move. They were tall, wearing something light-colored, maybe a jacket. I rolled my window down just an inch. "Hey," I called, my voice shaking. "Are you okay?" No response. The person slowly turned. I wish I hadn't seen their face. It wasn't injured. It wasn't monstrous. That almost made it worse. The face was blank, emotionless in a way I've never seen before. Eyes open, staring straight at me, unblinking. Mouth slightly open, like they were about to speak but forgot how. The smell hit me then. Something rotten, damp, like wet leaves in decay. They took one step toward my car. I didn't think. I threw the car into reverse, tires spinning, then slammed it into drive and swerved around them, nearly clipping the trees. In my rearview mirror, I saw them turn slowly and watch me go. They didn't chase me. That was worse somehow. I drove faster than I should have, ignoring the bumps, ignoring the burning smell from my tires. I kept expecting to see headlights behind me. Instead, I saw the house again. Mailbox 195. The porch light was off now. I screamed. I actually screamed. A raw sound ripped out of me. My chest felt like it was collapsing. I turned the wheel sharply, trying to get off the road, but there was nothing. Trees, dirt, darkness. My phone buzzed suddenly, making me flinch so hard I nearly crashed. No service flashed at the top, but a notification still came through. A text messages from an unknown number. "You missed the turn." My hand shook so badly I dropped the phone. I don't remember exactly how long I drove after that. Time felt slippery, unreal. The clock jumped forward, then back. 2:41, 2:38, 2:45. Then, without warning, the trees ended. The road widened, reflectors appeared, and ahead of me, blessedly, were highway signs. I burst out onto the main road so fast I didn't even slow down to look behind me. My GPS snapped back to life, recalculating frantically like nothing had happened. The side road wasn't on the map anymore. I didn't stop driving until sunrise. Later that day, after reaching my sister's place, I searched for that road. I traced my route, zoomed in, switched map modes. Nothing, no branching road. No branching road. No houses. No address 195. Sometimes late at night, when I'm driving alone and my GPS glitches for even a second, I smell wet leaves. And I remember that blank face. And I wonder if I'd stopped the car completely, if I'd rolled the window down more, whether the road would have let me leave at all. Someone was following us for miles. This happened in the summer of 2019, when I was 21 and still in college. My best friend Mark and I had just finished our spring semester in Oregon, and to celebrate, we decided to take a road trip down the coast. Nothing fancy, just his old silver Honda Civic, a loose plan, and a few days to kill before we both had to start summer jobs. We left Eugene on a Friday evening around 7 p.m., planning to drive south toward Northern California, Stop wherever we felt tired, and sleep in cheap motels along the way. It was supposed to be fun and spontaneous. At least, that's what we told ourselves. By the time we hit the more rural coastal highways, it was already dark. The road twisted constantly, bordered on one side by dense forest and on the other by steep drops we couldn't see, only feel. The air coming through the cracked windows smelled like salt and pine, cold enough that I kept rubbing my arms. Mark had music playing quietly, something low and instrumental, because anything louder felt wrong in that darkness. Around 10:45 p.m., we passed through a tiny town. I don't even remember the name. One main road, a closed diner, a gas station, with only one light on. We didn't stop. Something about the place felt abandoned, like everyone had left in a hurry and forgotten to come back. About 15 minutes later, Mark said, "You noticed that car?" I looked up from my phone. In the rearview mirror, a pair of headlights sat far back on the road. Yellowish, dim. "Probably just someone else heading south," I said. But Mark didn't answer. He slowed slightly. The headlights slowed too. We drove like that for a while, the distance between us never changing. The road curved constantly, so the headlights would disappear and reappear, but they were always there, always the same distance back. At 11:20 p.m., Mark sped up. The Civic wasn't fast, but it picked up speed. The headlights behind us did the same. That's when my stomach tightened. "You think they're following us?" I asked. Mark shrugged, but his jaw was clenched. "Could be coincidence." We stopped talking after that. The road narrowed even more, trees pressing in close. There were no streetlights, no houses, no pull-offs. Just us, the forest, and those headlights behind us, steady and patient. At 11:47 p.m., Mark missed a turn. The GPS recalculated and directed us onto a smaller road, unpaved gravel crunching loudly under the tires. The headlights followed without hesitation. "Great," I muttered. "Now we're really isolated." The air felt colder here, the forest thicker. The trees seemed taller, their branches interlocking overhead, blocking out what little moonlight there was. Mark rolled his window down slightly, maybe to listen. That's when we heard it. An engine revving. Not behind us. Ahead. I felt my heart jump into my throat. The headlights behind us suddenly shut off. Complete darkness. Mark slowed instinctively, then stopped himself. "Nope," he said under his breath and accelerated. A few seconds later, headlights appeared ahead of us, cresting a small rise. Another car, old, boxy. Its headlights were too bright, too white, like high beams that never dimmed. It slowed as it approached. So did Mark. As the cars passed each other, I glanced sideways. There were 3 people inside. All of them were staring straight at us. No expressions, no movement. Just eyes locked onto my face, Mark's face. The inside of our car. The driver didn't even glance at the road. The smell hit me as we passed. Something foul, like spoiled meat mixed with gasoline. I gagged and rolled my window up. In the mirror, I saw their brake lights flash. Then they turned around, and the car behind us, its headlights came back on. "There were 2 cars," I whispered. Mark nodded, breathing hard. "Yeah." They boxed us in. Front car sped up slightly. Rear car closed the gap. We were trapped between them, forced to match their speed. My heart was pounding so hard my ears rang. At 12:03 a.m., the front car slowed to a crawl. Mark slammed on the brakes, barely avoiding hitting it. The rear car did the same, stopping inches from our bumper. I could hear their engine idling, low and uneven. The front car's driver door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, painfully thin, wearing a dark jacket that hung off him wrong, like it belonged to someone else. He stood in front of our car, illuminated by our headlights, and tilted his head slightly, studying us. I noticed then how quiet it was. No insects, no wind, No distant traffic, just engines and our breathing. Mark locked the doors. The man smiled. It was wide and wrong, stretching too far across his face. He leaned down, placing his hands on the hood of our car. His fingers were long, nails dark with grime. "You boys lost?" he asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. Mark didn't answer. From the rearview mirror, I saw the back car's doors open. Shape stepped out, moving slowly toward us. I started crying without realizing it. Mark suddenly floored it. The Civic lurched forward, slamming into the man. He rolled off the hood and hit the ground with a dull thud. We swerved around the front car, tires screaming on gravel, and tore down the road. Behind us, engines roared. They chased us. Branches scraped the sides of the car as we sped through turns I was sure we'd crash on. I smelled burning rubber, hot metal. My chest hurt from breathing too fast. At 12:11 a.m., lights appeared ahead. A highway. Mark blew through the intersection without stopping, nearly getting us killed, and merged onto the road. Semi-trucks thundered past. Real traffic, real people. The cars behind us slowed. They didn't follow. We didn't speak for a long time. Not until we reached a brightly lit gas station miles later, where we sat shaking in the parking lot, surrounded by strangers, trying to feel normal again. We never reported it, never talked about it to anyone else. Sometimes when I drive at night and see headlights keeping the exact same distance behind me, I remember those blank stares, and I wonder how many miles they'd already been following us before we ever noticed. We should not have stopped at mile marker 142. I've gone back and forth for years about whether to share this, not because I'm afraid people won't believe me, but because saying it out loud makes it feel closer again. Like it might hear me, like it's been waiting for me to remember of 2020. During the second COVID wave, when travel felt wrong but staying home felt worse. I was 28, recently divorced, and numb in a way that only comes when life keeps moving, but you don't. I decided to drive from Amarillo, Texas to Flagstaff, Arizona. No real reason beyond needing distance. I told friends I wanted the scenery. That was a lie. I wanted emptiness. I left Amarillo at 4:10 p.m. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, I was already deep into eastern New Mexico, surrounded by endless black land and a sky that felt too big. The radio worked in patches. My phone showed one bar, then none. I didn't mind. Silence felt appropriate. By 9:30 p.m., the temperature had dropped sharply. Frost edged the corners of my windshield. I cracked the window once and immediately shut it again. The cold air smelled metallic, almost sour, like old pennies and damp soil. At around 10:55 p.m., I passed a sign that read, mile marker 142. I remember it because the numbers were crooked. One of them bent slightly, like someone had tried to rip it off and failed. About 2 minutes later, my car shuddered. At first, I thought it was the wind. Then the dashboard lights flickered. The engine stuttered once, twice, then steadied again. My heart raced, but the car kept going. I laughed it off nervously and kept driving. Another minute passed. Then the engine died. No warning, no dramatic sputtering, just silence. I coasted to the side of the highway, gravel crunching beneath my tires, and came to a stop. The sudden quiet felt violent. My ears rang. I checked the time, 11:02 p.m. I sat there for a full 30 seconds, hands on the wheel, breathing slowly, trying not to panic. Then I turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. I tried again. Nothing. Not even a click. I tried again. Still nothing. I popped the hood, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped out of the car. The cold hit me instantly, biting through my jacket. My breath fogged thick and fast. The land around me was flat and empty, stretching out endlessly, illuminated only by my headlights. No other cars passed, no distant engine noise. Just wind brushing across dead grass. I lifted the hood and stared at the engine like I knew what I was looking at. I didn't. I stood there longer than necessary, mostly because I didn't want to get back in the car yet. Something about the darkness beyond the headlights felt attentive. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I froze. The sound was coming from behind my car. I turned slowly, flashlight shaking in my hand. A man stood at the edge of the light. He hadn't been there a second ago. He was tall, wearing a heavy coat that looked too warm for the season. The collar pulled high around his neck. His hands were in his pockets. His face was partially shadowed, but I could see enough to know something wasn't right. His skin looked grayish, stretched tight, like it didn't fit properly. "Car trouble?" he asked. His voice was calm, flat, like he'd practiced the tone. "Yeah," I said, forcing my voice steady. "Battery, I think." He nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer. "Funny place to break down," he said. "Not many people stop here." My stomach twisted. "I didn't have much choice," I replied. He took a step closer. The smell hit me immediately. Cold earth, mold, something faintly sweet and rotten underneath. I fought the urge to step back. "I live nearby," he said. "Got tools. Phone too, if you need to call someone." I glanced past him instinctively. There was nothing out there. Just darkness. "No houses," I said carefully. He smiled. "You wouldn't see them from the road." Something in the way he said road made my skin crawl. "I think I'll just wait for a car," I said. His smile faded. "No one's coming," he replied. The certainty in his voice made my chest tighten. Before I could respond, headlights appeared in the distance. Relief washed over me so hard my knees nearly buckled. The man turned his head slowly toward the lights. His jaw clenched. "Lucky timing," he muttered. The car passed without slowing. The man watched it disappear, then looked back at me. His expression had changed, not angry, disappointed. "Well," he said softly, "that won't happen again." I felt real fear then, sharp and immediate. "I'm getting back in my car," I said. He didn't stop me, but as I closed the door, he leaned down, his face suddenly inches from the glass. "Lock it," he whispered. I did, immediately. I watched him step back, stand in front of my headlights, and raise his hand. He pointed down the road, toward mile marker 142. Then he walked into the darkness. I sat frozen for several minutes, heart pounding, sweat cold on my back despite the temperature. I tried the ignition again. The engine roared to life instantly. I didn't question it. I pulled back onto the highway and drove. At first, everything felt normal, too normal. I started convincing myself I'd imagined the man, the smell, the voice, stress, exhaustion. Then I saw the sign again. Mile marker 142. My blood ran cold. I slowed down. The sign was bent the same way. That shouldn't have been possible. I hadn't turned around. I checked the GPS. It showed me driving in a straight line. No loops, no turns. The road ahead shimmered slightly, like heat distortion. But it was freezing outside. That's when the radio turned on by itself. Static at first, then a voice, low, male. "You should have stayed." My heart slammed against my ribs. I turned the radio off. It turned back on. "Don't make us come get you." I screamed and ripped the fuse out of the dashboard. The radio died. The engine began to slow. I floored the gas. The headlights flickered. The headlights flickered. In the distance, I saw shapes along the roadside. People, standing perfectly still, watching. As I passed them, I realized they all wore coats. All faced the road. All turned their heads in perfect unison as I went by. Their faces were wrong, not blurred, not hidden, empty, like mannequins made of skin. The car bucked violently. The dashboard lights went out. For a terrifying second, everything went black. Then, headlights, real ones. A semi-truck thundered past in the opposite lane, its horn blaring. The shock of it jolted something loose. My dashboard lit up again. The engine stabilized. When I looked back, the people were gone. The road was empty. I didn't stop driving until sunrise. I didn't sleep that night. Weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I searched mile marker 142 along that highway. There were reports, missing persons, stranded motorists, unexplained breakdowns. Most were decades old. Some were recent. One detail stuck with me. Several people mentioned being helped by a man who lived nearby. None of them were ever seen again. I still drive, but I never stop on empty roads at night. And when I pass mile marker 142, I don't look at the side of the road anymore, because sometimes I swear they're standing closer than before.